Hi, my name's Thete, and it's time for another gaming discussion. This is going to be on Warhammer Age of Sigmar, which is my preferred game at the moment, even though I've been very, very focused on 40k. In fact, the next video is also going to be on 40k, but this one, Age of Sigmar and on Ossiarch Bonereapers. Now, for those sort of in the know on this one, you may guess what it is about. In fact, you'll have seen the title. It's about Petrifex Elite. It was prompted really by a couple of things. First of all, someone put a comment about it on my last video, which was 40k based. Maybe that was a prompt to talk about it. But then I saw someone this week on YouTube saying something about it, which I sort of fundamentally disagreed with. Now, a bit of background. So, as is typical of Age of Sigmar armies in the battle tomes that are been designed for 2nd edition, which is now the bulk of them, Ossiarch Bonereapers have access to different faction, what they call legions. They're called different things in different books. And what it is so the main battle tome gives your army a set of special rules. These special rules apply to your army. Some of those special rules may apply to the whole army. Some of them may just apply to certain units. But what these, they're called, legions for Ossiarch Bonereapers, they give you additional special rules. Now, in the case of Ossiarch Bonereapers, it's fairly typical. You get a special rule that applies to all of your units. Sometimes in these, it'll apply to certain ones. This applies to all of them. You get a special command ability. You get a special command trait now. And you also get an artifact of power. Those can be the downsides. Because with the command trait, see, if you play 40k, you may think, oh, it's nice to have an optional command trait. There's nothing optional about it. If you choose these special rules, you must take that command trait, which means your general must have that command trait. It stops you taking any of the common ones. The same with the artifact of power. It is possible to have more than one artifact of power, but if you're only going to have one, then you must take this one. You have to take this one. Now, sometimes these command traits and artifact powers are decent, in which case, yeah, great. In fact, that can be largely the reason for you picking those special rules. Sometimes they're not that good, or sometimes even if they're okay, they're not as good as something else you could take. So they can be the downsides. Now, Ossiarch Bonereapers have access to 6 legions, which is actually quite generous. Quite a few of them have access to 4. Some of them have access to about 6, some of them a bit more. But they may not have bothered at all, because all anyone would take is Petrifex Elite. And that was largely because of the special rule that a lot of people are focusing on at the moment, which gave them +1 to their save, which is absolutely immense. It made them extremely resilient. Quite a lot of the army either has a 3-up or a 4-up save. Then that became a 2-up or a 3-up save, which is incredible. Incredible. And Mortek Guard became particularly resilient because you could give them an ability quite easily that would allow them to reroll all failed saves, and you could put, Mystic Shield on one unit at any rate and allow them to at least reroll the ones, which if you had a 2-up save was brilliant. But it's now been FAQ'd, it's been changed. So the +1 save is gone. In its place is you can reroll saves of 1 for melee attacks. So it used to be +1 save across the board. Now it's reroll 1s, but only for close combat attacks. So for shooting, you get no protection at all. Now that is a definite nerf. Now just to compare what I did assuming this would be in close combat, I looked at Mortek Guard. Now Mortek Guard aren't necessarily the best ones to do this for because they get the shield wall ability, but they have a 4-up save is the key thing. So where I put Mortek Guard here, that's 4-up save. Where I put Liege Cavalos, which is my preferred general, then they have a 3-up save. And I've done 3 columns here. Normal is just what their chances are of saving against a wound caused by either no rend, 1 rend, 2 rend, or 3 rend attacks. And normal is just, what it would be. The old PE is for old Petrifex. That's what it would have been with the +1 save. New Petrifex Elite, this is what it would be in close combat with the reroll 1s to save. If you want to see what it is in shooting, well, you just use normal because they get no benefit from this. So what you can see is, in close combat, I have to keep emphasising that, It's nowhere near as good as the old Petrifex Elite ability, of course. But then that's the whole point of the change. The change was not to change it from one thing to another. It was specifically to nerf it because everyone was taking Petrifex Elite. So, it is a nerf. It's a clear nerf. It is still better than nothing. It is still a beneficial ability. Yes, it completely makes Mystic Shield useless, but at the end of the day, is that a bad thing? Because Mystic Shield might be failed and it might be unbound and you may not get it off. So this is giving you Mystic Shield on your whole army. It's still better than nothing. Just nowhere near as good as the old one. Now, what that means is that, and also you can sort of see what you've got here is a significant benefit against most normal attacks, which is rend 1 or no rend at all. Obviously, the more rend there is, the less of a benefit it gives you, even in close combat. But very few things have very high rend anyway. They're usually your monstery type things, your absolute beasts, as well as characters that are particularly combat orientated. But what I saw someone expressing a couple of statements. Now, this person on YouTube was saying, first of all, that there seems to be a feeling amongst the community that Ossiarch Bonereapers as a collective now are trash. As if only Petrifex Elite, only this one ability made them even worth taking. I don't think that's true. And to be fair, they were also disagreeing with that. But what they did say is, they're saying, it's brilliant because now you can take these other legions and you've got a choice now, which is good, and that was the purpose. But they said, they seem to be suggesting that Petrifex Elite is now trash. You know, as if, you've now got a choice of legions. You won't automatically all take the same one. But I'll tell you what, no one will take Petrifex Elite. I'm thinking, yeah, I think they will. I mean, you have got some more interest in the other ones. So if you take Ossiarch Lords, for example, is another one. Their special ability is they can run and charge. Well, that's quite nice. It's quite niche. It's not going to work in every game. In every game, you may not need to be able to run before you charge. It gives you some tactical flexibility. It also gets your opponent having to reconsider the way they move around you as well. So it's nice. It won't always come in useful, but it is nice. But the command trait and the artifact, the relic, which are sometimes the downsides, are absolutely downsides in this situation. They're both crap. Null Myriad is really interesting against a magic-heavy opponent. It gives you certain defences against magical attacks on the part of your opponent. And it's got an absolute peach of an artifact. Taken in isolation, absolutely brilliant. So you give this artifact to a combat-orientated character and it allows them to choose one close combat weapon and you can make no saves against it or negate any wounds against it. So you give this to a combat beast, an absolute combat beast, and all they have to do is hit and win. That's it. Once they've done that, the damage is going on. The opponent cannot save against it, and if they've got something like Deathless Minions or Disgustingly Resilient, it can't be used. They can heal the wounds later, but they can't stop the wounds being caused at that point. Amazing. Only downside is Ossiarch Bonereapers do not have a combat beast. Liege Cavalos is the best that you could give this thing to. They're okay. Not knocking them. They're okay. They're not great. They're not amazing. They're the best they've got. But compared to some other armies that have proper combat beasts and that could be given this in theory if they were in that army, it's not. Then you've got Crematorians. They have a very nice spiteful ability. I like spiteful abilities. So what this one does, their special rule is, if anyone kills one of your models in close combat, there's a chance you could inflict a mortal wound back on them. That's always nice. But downside to that is, I think that would become useful. That is useful. But the command trait means that if your general dies, then they have a decent chance of doing more damage back. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not terribly keen on command traits that only work when my general dies, because I like to keep my general alive. They're fairly useful to me. You know, I can understand the concept of some sacrificial units, not my general. I would rather a command trait that helped keep them alive, or at least boosted the effectiveness of the army in some other way. This does neither. This is like, if you're so bad that your general gets killed, well, here's a bone for you. No pun intended. But still, there is some interest there. You could look at it. I mean, I look at the army I designed, but I designed it around Petrifex Elite. And I'd look at it, and if I was to take that army again, and I say take it again, if I was to persist with that army, which I think I would, I still like it. It was designed around Petrifex Elite, so I would probably redesign an army around one of the other legions. And you could absolutely do that. But is Petrifex Elite? People may be saying it's trash on the basis that reroll ones to wound, reroll ones to save is nowhere near as good as +1 save. No, it's not. And it only works in close combat, so that's nowhere near as good. Some of the other abilities look a bit better. Okay, fine. But it's not just about that one ability. Because if you look at what Petrifex Elite gives you, the command ability allows you to give a unit +1 to their rend. That's always useful. In every battle, in every matchup, you will always get some use out. You will be using that command ability. Some of the other command abilities you'd think, well, it might depend on the scenario. Maybe there'll be a turn when I'd use it. This Petrifex Elite command ability, you will be using every time you've got a close combat if you are able to. Obviously, the way Ossiarch Bonereapers work, you've got an awful lot of command abilities. You have got an awful lot of points, but there is a limit. You can't just spend it on whatever you want. But you are very likely to use that command ability multiple times in the battle. Potentially multiple times in one turn. Then the command trait, add +2 to the general's wounds characteristic. Now, okay, it's not an exciting one, but it's a bloody useful one. Again, what I was saying, I either wanted a command trait to boost the effectiveness of my army or help keep my general alive so that they can boost the effectiveness of their army with their other abilities. This allows them to do that, +2 wounds. Fantastic. Then the Artifact of Power, which would also go on my Liege Cavalos. Doesn't have to, but it would. And this one means that you can ignore the first wound caused in each phase. Not each turn, not each battle round, each phase. So the combination of +2 wounds and ignoring the first wound caused in each phase adds multiple wounds to your general. Helps keep them alive. Helps you to be able to put them in the thick of the action more safely. And again, you look at these and you compare them to the overall picture for other legions. And I'm sorry, Petrifex Elite still stands out for me as being overall very, very strong. And I would still say, for me personally, the best one. Now, so yeah, we're going to have to wait a while here for another tournament season. It's going to be at least next year before we see what competitive players would do about this. I can still see them largely go for Petrifex Elite. I can absolutely see them redesign an army around one of the other legions. Yep, so I can see there'd be more of a mix. But the idea that Petrifex Elite has been wiped from the map seems to be ridiculous to me. Because the overall package is still very, very good. And I have to say, part of that is helped out by the fact that you just look at some of the others. And although Petrifex Elite as it was too strong. It was too strong. And I think Games Workshop have done the business now because they've nerfed it, which is what needed to happen. But they haven't nerfed it into uselessness. But some of the other ones are poor. I think that when they were making the other legions, they didn't really think too carefully about some of these ones. I mean, Mortis Praetorians isn't too bad. Staliart Lords is of niche use. Ivory Host is not terrible, but it is not great either. Crematorians are just interesting, but again, I don't want my general to die, which means the command trait is worthless. Null Myriad, good against Magic Heavy, so against Tzeentch or the new Lumineth Realm Lords could be quite tasty. Against Kharadron Overlords or Khorne, but there it is. But Petrifex Elite will always be useful. It'll be useful against everything. It is, what I would still say is you take on all comers and always be useful. Whereas I think the other ones, you could design an interesting list around them, but you could easily come up against a matchup and you go, oh, well, this one doesn't play to my strengths. Everything will play to Petrifex Elite strengths. But those are my thoughts anyway. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to see more content, please subscribe to the channel as well. Until next time, I will see you later.